Hello everyone, Afin here. If you don't know me, I am an avid Pearly fan. I have been playing Pearly since release, Amazing Defenders, and I've also topped a WCQ with playing Pearly as well. I'm really excited today because Konami has unveiled their new official way of playing Yu-Gi-Oh, which is Yugioh Genesis. As you can see on the screen, Genesis rules are quite simple. There's no link monsters or no pendulum monsters, and the standard forbidden and limited list is not used. Instead, deck construction uses a point system. So some cards are assigned a point value, and some cards are assigned 0 points. And the total number of points together equals up to 100 in your deck, and that becomes a legal deck. For different tournaments that OTS stores can run, there can be different point limits, but 100 is typically the default. So if we can go through the list, you can see that a lot of the floodgates have been hit as 100, which means that you can play the card, but it has to be the only card in your deck that's on this list. And there's about 500 cards on this list. And if we look for the Pearly cards, we can see that Pearly is at 15, Sleepy Memory is at 15, Lily is at 10, and lastly, Street is at 5. Now, if you guys do the maths on that, unfortunately, if we play 3 copies of everything, that equals 135. So that's our first roadblock into playing Pearly. Is that it's in fact, even though there's no ban list, Pearly is not fully off the list. So we're going to have to make some changes to the way that we play Pearly and the way that we do non-engine for this format. So the first suggestion that I can make for you guys is that you can potentially cut Street. So Street is obviously very strong at 3 cards. However, Street's most important strength is to stop Imperm, Veiler, and other targeting effects. In a format where Imperm and Veiler are quite expensive, Imperm being, I think, 15. Imperm being 15 points, and Veiler being probably 7 points. In a format, and you'll see later how expensive non-engine is in kind of meta-engine strategies. Because the concept of Genesis format is that if you have a strong engine, you have weaker non-engine. If you have a weak engine that's quite old, you can give yourself strong engine cards, like 3 Pot of Greed for, I believe, 90 points. So, given that people will likely be playing strong engine, people will not have room for 3 infinite impermanents, or they won't have room for effect veilers. And even then, with effect veilers being cheaper than Imperm, it means that we can activate cards during the draw phase to play around the more prominent effect veiler than to play around the Imperm. And because there's less Imperm, less effect veiler, it means that Street becomes less good, but we still want copies of it in our deck. So, for this particular one, we can play 3 Pearly, 2 Lily, 1 Street, and 2 Sleepy Memory. However, that gets us to a points total of 100 out of 100, which means that we can't play non-engine, which is good, in comparison to all the other particular non-engines. A way of fixing that issue is to cut down on 1 White Cat. So we can play 2 Lily, 2 Pearly, 2 Street, 2 Sleepy Memory, and we get a point total of 90 out of 100. So, with that as the basis for our decks, today I've got for you 4 deck lists. 2 of them are pure, and 2 of them are variants. So we're going to look at our first one here. So here, we're obviously going to play 3 Kambi. The card is free, and it's basically another copy of Pearly. After that, we have our the standard that I talked about. 2 Pearly, 2 Lily, 2 Street, 2 Sleepy Memory. Then we max out on every other name, which includes 3 Delicious Memory, which is going to feel great when you can make your Noir over 15,000 attack points. It's going to feel so good. I've missed this feeling. We haven't had it in probably over a year, and I'm very excited for it. After that, we've got a little bit of a draw engine. We've got 3 Brow, 1 Shaddoll Beast, again free. And the reason why I think a draw engine is good is because draw costs 7 points. And as you can see from our Pearly core, we're already at 90 out of 100, which means that we don't particularly have enough room to play draw. And a lot of the meta decks from the past couple of years also have high engine counts. So if we, for example, look at Branded Fusion is at 33, and Branded Loss is at 66. That's not even including the fusions, and I believe that Mirror Jade is on here as 33 as well. So Brandon's going to make a lot of concessions to the actual engine, and that's not even talking about non-engine yet. And that deck was good in like 2022. Also 2023 and 2024, but it's an older strategy. So a lot of the engines will be hit quite hard, and all the engines that have remained typically should be weak enough that Pearly can kind of power through it. So we shouldn't be seeing too much Droll, although Droll is a very good card this format, given that you can play Exodia FTK. I think that Droll is a very important card, however, we don't have the space to play it, and I think that other people won't have the space to play it too, hence 3 Brow, 1 Shaddoll Beast. Next up, we've got Keldo and Medora, who are off the ban list and are only 1 point, which is incredible because it means that we can play 2 copies of each, equaling 4 points. After that, we can play 2 Herald of the Orange Light, 3 Dark Ruler, and 3 Ultimate Slayer. Now, Dark Ruler No More already fit in all of our normal TCG Pearly decks, and here it is just given to us for free. Ultimate Slayer is also really good because we don't really care about having these going second cards when we're going first, because we simply discard them for the summons of the Pearly monsters. So they don't end up bricking our hand. Now, with the Herald of the Orange Light, we are playing, I think, 11... or maybe 13, 3, 6, 7, 10, 11, 13. We're playing 13 fairies, which means that it's a very good chance that we're going to draw 2. Now, I personally don't really like the fact that you have to give up 2 cards for Orange Light, but in a simplified format, that might actually be enough to stop a turn in its entirety, and your opponent is less likely to have hand traps to stop you playing your turn, so you don't need as many cards in your hand to actually manage to get your combo going. For the extra deck here, we're playing 1 X Pearly Happiness, which honestly I included because we kind of have room to do whatever we want now that we're not playing Link monsters, now that Zeus, you guys are probably interested in Zeus. Zeus is 20 points, and Typhon is 10 points. So we can potentially play those options. However, I barely find myself going into Zeus in the TCG anyway. And normally if I make Typhon, I've already lost the game. So I don't feel too cut about cutting those cards. However, now I can play X Pearly Happiness, and there's multiple delicious memories, which means that on turn 3, it's very easy to make yourself a plump, suck a couple of materials, make X Pearly Happiness, and then end the game right there. That's quite also important, given our new time rules kind of disadvantages Pearly because of the slow grind game to actually manage to kill your opponent. You will very commonly and frequently hit those 50 minutes, especially when your opponents don't scoop to you. So having the X Pearly Happiness in the deck helps speed this up. Another option is also Monster Gate, but I feel going out of Archetype when you've got the in-Archetype option just feels kind of weird. Then we also have the 2 Lyrilisk monsters, Promenade Thrush, which is a spell trap removal, and Ensemble Robin, which bounces a special summon monster when it is special summoned. Next up, we have Sylvian Princess Spright, which draws a card if the top card you reveal is a spell card. And, we're playing a decent amount of spell cards. We're not playing the most, so I might not go into this, like if I've got an option for a rank 1, I might go into Ensemble Robin. But if I'm playing against a deck where that card is not good, then I might go into the Princess Spright. So it's just good to have that option there. And then we have our 2 Slayer targets, Garura and Marlong. Obviously, we don't need an XE target. We can use any of the ones that are currently in our extra deck. But if you guys want to cut the happiness, you can always potentially add Aggregator. Yeah, Aggregator is a free card as well, so you can definitely add that. For our side deck, we are playing 3 D-Fissure. Now, D-Fissure is a great card in Pearly. It stops Effect Veiler, it stops Droll, and we can also play around it very effectively because when we detach materials from our Pearly monsters, they don't count as going from field to graveyard. Actually, I think they don't count as going to graveyard because I believe D-Fissure is... D-Fissure says any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So cards that get detached from XC monsters don't count as going to the graveyard. So they end up in the graveyard even under D-Fissure. Basically, which makes it very strong for Pearly because you can stick all your materials under the cards and then you don't lose your monsters as you detach them. Next, we have Cosmic Cyclone. Now, we're playing 3 Cosmic Cyclone because spell trap removal in this format is quite expensive for your big floodgates. So, Lightning Storm is 40. and Duster is 33. So obviously we can't fit those in, so we have to go with Cosmic, which is free. Mystical Space Typhoon is also free. So we can choose one of those options, and Twin Twisters is also free. But we've gone for Cosmic Cyclone because the Banish effect is a little bit more versatile. Next up, we've got 3 Sphere Mode. Now, this slot can either be Sphere Mode or Lava Golem, depending on how the format shapes up and how many monsters get left on typical fields. But because we don't need our normal summon, it's very, very strong. And it's also another free card. Then, our going first card, Iron Thunder. Now, Iron Thunder is very similar to... it's very similar to Solemn Judgment. I'll bring up Iron Thunder because you guys might not be familiar with it. So, when a spell trap card or a monster effect is activated on the field, pay half your life points, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And then this is the important part that makes Iron Thunder worse. Then destroy any other cards in the same column the destroyed card was in that are in the monster zones or the spell and trap zones. So this means that if your opponent activates any card in, let's say, your My Friend column, if you activate Iron Thunder, it'll pop their card, it'll negate their card, pop it, and then it'll also pop your My Friend as well, which can be a bit disadvantageous for you, but given that it's free and we don't have much real estate left, it's a pretty good option. So you just have to be really careful about when you activate this card, and sometimes if your opponent activates something in the column that your My Friend is in, maybe you don't activate the Iron Thunder. Alternatively, maybe you search for a Happy Memory in the previous turn and your My Friend is being protected by that Happy Memory, which means that you're free to activate that Iron Thunder. It's just things to think about. But it's a free card, and we're not going to complain about that. And our last 3 cards is Lyrilisk Recital Starling, which searches for a winged beast monster. And then we've got 2 DD Crows. So that's it for our first deck profile. So we're going to call this more of a pure fairy Pearly build. I just thought that the fact that Keldo and Medora were at 1 point was kind of insane. I kind of wanted to use something to show that off. You can see here that we actually do have 6 points remaining. So I think total non-engine is 10. So you can potentially put stuff like Dark Hole is worth 3 points. So you can potentially have 2 of those instead. But I thought that this kind of worked out pretty well. Next up, our second list. So very similar start. But here's where it's different. So instead of the Keldo Medora and the Orange Light, we're playing 3 Foolish Burial Goods, 1 Metal Foes Fusion, and 1 Black Goat Laughs. So this is 100 out of 100. And the reason why I think this is better is because in a format where we have 3 Delicious Memory, it's very likely that we're going to end up in a hand with Delicious Memory in it, which means that there's more of an opportunity to hard make Noir. In order to hard make Noir, you're going to have a lot of spell cards in your graveyard, so your hand has to, I think, be like a Delicious Memory, a way to get a monster on the field, and 2 spells, basically. So having more draws, having more spell cards that can go to the graveyard is a way of making it easier and more reliable for us to make Noir via Delicious Memory and Plump. The extra deck is the same, and the side deck is also the same. It's just the main deck that changes for that one. And that one's 100 out of 100. I personally like this one better because drawing is really fun. But in a format where graveyard effects are quite good, obviously having Keldo and Medora there are very, very, very good for dealing with that. Onto our first variant, we've got here Pearly Spright. So, what's hit in the Spright engine? So, none of the main deck stuff is, however, Spright Starter is, which is why that I'm not playing the card. So, Gigantic is worth 20 points, and Starter is worth 20 points. This means that in our Pearly ratio here, where we've only got 10 points remaining, we do have to cut something else. And for variant decks, you can easily cut the field spell. Because we don't need the field spell as much because we've got the other engines to do a little bit of the carrying, it ends up okay. So, we've got the Nimbles. 3 Nimble Beaver, 3 Nimble Angler. Nimble Angler is an amazing discard. You activate it during the draw phase. You activate a memory, discard Angler. You get 3 bodies on the field before your main phase, which is insane. I love Nimble Angler, and Nimble Beaver is also such a strong normal summon because you summon that and it threatens a lot of things like the Oni Bimaru or Gigantic Spright. After that, we've got our Pearly names. So we've got 2 Pearly, 2 Lily, 2 Sleepy, no Street. So that's how we cut down to make the Pearly engine 80 cards. And then we have our 1 of Gigantic to put it up to 100. After that, it's just the Pearly ratios. And then we've got 3 blue, 2 jet, 1 red, 1 carrot, and a double cross. That's what we're going to be searching off the jet. After that, we've got 3 Dark Ruler, no more, 3 upstart goblins, and then 1 Twin Twister. I wasn't really sure what to put in this last slot. It had to be free because we had spent all of our points on the engine, so Twin Twisters seem pretty good, especially because you can just discard Nimble Angler again. For our extra deck, we're still playing the Ensemble Robin. Sometimes you'll have a decent amount of discards, and you'll get into it. You've got Gigantic Spright, Ninja Shadow Mosquito, which is really good for FTKs because every time that you attack with a monster, you can deal damage equal to an opponent's attack points. Which means that if you've got a Happy Memory, an E-Pearly Happiness and a Mosquito, you can then attack multiple times with the E-Happiness and deal their attack points in damage every single time. So it makes it for very consistent OTKs, basically. Next, we have Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, which is a form of removal. It banishes your opponent's card until their end phase. So basically 2 turns. You're going to do it in your turn. It's going to banish into the end of your opponent's turn. So that's 2 turns. It's not a quick effect, however. And then we got Sky Cavalry Centauria, which is non-targeting removal, but you have to battle with it. So you would battle a monster, and then it non-target bounces it back to hand. And then we have Djinn Buster, which is a monster negate. You detach 2 materials, negate a monster effect. However, it does need to be made with 2 dark monsters, so you can't make it with the Nimbles. You have to make it with blue, with exactly blue and jet. You can't make it with carrot or red either. And then our side deck is very similar to before. The only difference here is that we took out the sphere modes because we have a normal summon in Beaver, Lily, and Pearly. That's 7 normal summons. It's very likely that we're going to see 1 of them. So we took out the Kaiju. We took out the sphere mode. Instead, we've put in a Kaiju. Now, I've gone for the Thunder Kaiju because it has the most attack at 3,300. That's very important because of Shadow Mosquito, because you can burn them for that 3,300. So it just makes your OTKs easier. So that's Spright Pearly. And then our last variant for today is Mimighoul Pearly. Now, Mimighoul Pearly has not been hit. Well, Mimighoul has not been hit at all. None of the Mimighoul cards are on the list. Here. So none of the Mimighoul cards are on the list, which means that it's very easy to stick them in the deck and then have non-engine space. So for our Pearly cards, we're playing 2 Pearly, 2 Lily, 2 Sleepy, and I've elected to not play any Street because we're playing 3 Dungeon, and we kind of want to get the Dungeon lock where we flip their monster face down, and then the Dungeon prevents them from flipping it face up. So after that, just our normal Pearly stuff. For the Mimighouls, we're playing 1 Master, 3 Dragon, 2 Archfiend, 1 Fairy, 1 Slime, 3 Dungeon. And just looking at it now, we should also be probably playing Mimighoul Room. This one, we 100% should be playing this card, but I forgot to put it in. But I wanted to show you this deck because it allows you to play a lot of non-engine. So we have 80 points of non-engine here. I've gone for 3 Book of Eclipse because I think it's very strong. However, a card that's very cheap is Shifter at 5 points. Somehow, Shifter is 5 points. So we can play 3 Shifter in Mimighoul Pearly if the format says that Shifter is a very good card, which we will see about what's good and what's not. But this deck has a very good potential to play Shifter. So if you're like, I'm a big Pearly fan and Shifter is good in the meta, Mimighoul Pearly is the way to go. And then I've also put in, again, Keldo, Medora. They're so cheap. They're so versatile. If you're playing Shifter in this deck, I wouldn't play these cards. But yeah, also play Room as well. For the extra deck, we're just playing the 2 Mimighoul cards and Ripplebird. So Ripplebird is made from 2 level 1s and allows you to change the battle position of a monster on the field. So you change your opponent's battle position from face down to face up attack position, and it triggers their effects during your turn. So it's a way of... It's basically another Archfiend without having to search for Archfiend. And then the side deck's just the same as before. Let's talk about what are Pearly's threats in this. So I've seen a lot of people talk about Pearly, and if Pearly becomes a popular deck, and now this is the problem with Pearly, is when it's a popular deck, it becomes a lot worse because people can play the cards that counter it. So, for example, Kurakara is not on this list. The only Kaiju card is Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, which we don't care about, but the actual Kaijus themselves are not on this list. And then Lava Golem and Sphere Mode are not on this list. So right there, everyone has access to Kaijus for free, even if their engine count is really high, even if their engine cost is really high. So that's something that you have to be precarious about as we see the meta develop. Hopefully Pearly is, flies under the radar and not everyone's playing Kaijus, but when you're looking at going second cards, and thankfully Dark Ruler is a free card and Ultimate Slayer is a free card, so hopefully people will gravitate towards those cards instead of playing Kaijus, but that is something to keep in mind. Something else to keep in mind, that there is also no Lunalight hits. And while you can't play Lunalight Wolf, Lunalight Tiger, because they're pendulum monsters, you can play the rest of the Lunalights. And it is still possible to make Liger. So if Lunalight ends up being a really good deck in the format, it means that we are going to struggle, because as people put in Kaijus for that deck, it also hits our deck as well. Something else to note is that DD Crow doesn't have a cost as well. And as a hand trap that doesn't have a cost, people will be looking to play it when they're looking for cheap hand traps to play. Which means that we have to play around it. So trying to use Pearly's effect on field instead of using Lily targeting a memory in the graveyard whenever possible is the way that we play around DD Crow, which is a slight annoyance. But, it is what it is, and people will be playing DD Crow just because of how cheap it is. So that's my initial thoughts on Pearly. I hope you guys are excited to play Genesis format. I certainly am. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know whether you guys have any ideas with your Pearly lists. And I'll see you guys next time. Remember to like and subscribe, everyone. I hope you stay for some more Pearly content. Thank you.